Can you find out how the hacker keeps having access into this Linux box? That is what this tardigrade room is all about. Investigate a Linux system and then find out how the hacker keeps access in this Linux system. So let's take a look. We started the machine and the attack box you'll see here on the right. And we got the internet address of this machine. And what they want us to do here is to connect to the machine using the username and password over SSH, and then find out what is the operating system version. So we can do that by starting a terminal. Now let's enlarge this. And we can say SSH, this allows for connecting to the machine. Then the username. Now keep in mind this is Italian name spelling. So you want to be sure that you don't misspell it. And then we connect to the target machine, which is this one. And if you want, you can copy and paste the address. This will be different on your machine. The server address is dynamic. Okay, and then we type the password. And now we are inside the machine. They want us to tell what is the server's OS version. Now you'll see this is the first thing listed here. Ubuntu 20.04.06, long time support. That is the Linux distribution version, and we can copy it. You don't have to manually type that and paste it in. There we go, first answer correct. Let's go to the next room. They ask us what is the most interesting file you find in the home directory. So if we clear this, you'll see we are in the folder home Giorgio, so the user's folder. We can list files and folders, and by default we don't see anything, but we might need to look for hidden files and folders. You can do that with the command ls-al, and you'll see it lists also hidden files and folders. Now one of the one that jumps out is this bad bash, and they ask you for the most interesting file, which probably that one. So we dot bad bash, and there we go. That is the hidden file we found. Now we could enlarge this terminal, so we could say project profiles and make this a bit larger for readability. There we go. So we listed all the hidden files, and when we add this flag -al, it also shows the hidden files and folders. Anything hidden starts with a dot. So everything is basically hidden here, and .bad bash is the most interesting one. Now, we might want to check what is inside that file, see if we can see if there's anything interesting in there. And we can do it with a cut command that simply opens the file and shows the text. So it seems there's a lot of junk in that file. They do a file .bad bash. You'll see it's an executable. You see elf here. This is a Linux executable. Okay, so let's see the next question. In the investigation, and so on. Another file is in the every user's home directory, is the .bashrc file. So if you take a look at the hidden files, you could see this bashrc file. And this is always there. And this file does the commands anytime you log in. So let's take a look at that file and see everything that is run when we log in. So we output that file cut and then that hidden file bashrc. And you'll see lots of commands are being run here. For example, they set some colors and they define some shorts, aliases. So all kind of commands can be run automatically when you log in into Linux, simply by adding them to the bashrc file. Now they ask us if there's any interesting commands you can find in this file. Now if you look here, you'll see these aliases. So these are all standard commands, ll, la, l. For example, we can do ll, and if that's those commands, la. But if we look carefully in that file, we can also see here dev TCP. We see an internet address here with a port and so on. So this is a reverse shell command. This allows a remote attacker to gain access into the computer. You'll see this network address. You don't want to see network addresses in your .bashrc file, because it could imply a hacker and giving a hacker access into your computer. So let's see if we can copy this. So this command will allow this hacker at this address and this port to connect to this computer. And the bashrc file, it just runs all of the commands when any user logs in. So on the login, it already gives the hacker access. So in this case, you want to be careful with how you copy and paste this. There we go. Now let's take a look at the next one. In the home directory, it has usual basis. It's time to check out the scheduled tasks. So we could take a look at cron tab. Cron tab is for scheduled tasks. In this case, we find something in this cron tab here, where we also see a network address and a port. So cron tab is just scheduled tasks. So a task should happen every month, every day, every week. And for example, here's an example where runs a backup every 5 a.m. every week. So every 5 a.m. every week, it runs this command. And then you'll see here all these asterisks. So this is running all the time. And what it does is it connects to this internet address at this port. So let's see if this is what they want. We copy this and paste it in. And there we go. This is one of the scheduled tasks of this Giorgio user that we found using cron tab -d. So anytime you're on a Linux box, you can do the command cron tab -e and see if there's anything scheduled, because a hacker might add things here that, for example, automatically connect to their box or run automatically malware or things like that. So you want to be careful with this cron tab -e. That is one of the ways hackers stay inside a Linux system. Now let's take a look at the next one. So they say here a lot of story to read, but they also give us the flag right here. So basically what they're telling here is about word lists and indicators of compromise. So anything that indicates a compromise. For example, in this cron tab, this is an indicator of compromise. By finding this, we discover, okay, someone is trying to connect to this address automatically. That shouldn't be there. Or, for example, when we checked the bashrc file, it automatically connects to this network address, this internet address at this port. That shouldn't be here. That's another indicator of compromise. That's what they're talking about here. So let's take a look at the next one. They ask us about the root account. So let's see if we can become root. We can type the command sudo su, and we type that same password, which I think was Armani or something like this. There we go. We are instantly root on this system. Now, they say there's an error message a few minutes after logging in. So right now we don't see anything, but you'll see it came up, ncat timeout. So ncat signout is the error message we see when we log in root on this machine. And once we press enter, we also see this suspicious command where it is shows this network address and this port again. So it seems here the connection failed to that internet address, but it automatically ran that command. We didn't do anything, just became root, and it tried to connect to that address. So let's see if we paste it in. Now you might wonder, why did this happen? Because we only logged in as root. We didn't really do anything, and it immediately tells us some timeout and that it tried to connect to an address. So it might be that this is in the bashrc file. Let's take a look. So the bashrc file, any command in there is run when you log in. Please try to output it. You'll see we can find a command here. So it does look a bit like a different command, you see. But let's try bashrc. There we go. This is the command. So this is the bashrc file. It runs these commands automatically. Then there is one more way a hacker stays in the system. One more persistence mechanism, as they call it, is how a hacker keeps having access into the system. So we could investigate this system. For example, we could check the home folder. And in this case, there's two users, Giorgio and Ubuntu. We could take a look at that Ubuntu user. We didn't do that before. And search for hidden files and folders. So there's another bashrc. In this case, it doesn't look like there's anything in here specifically, just random commands, but no internet address, no IP address. We could take a look at cron jobs. For example, sometimes they are hidden in spool, so there's cron subs here and Giorgio. See if we can output those cron jobs. And you'll find we have another persistence mechanism here. It runs the netcat command with this one. So let's take a look at this hint here. So unusual user. Now we found different users, but let's take a look at the passwords on the system. So we output passwords. So we have the user Ubuntu. Let's see. So that's not the one that wants. And let's filter this because there are a lot of users here that cannot log in. So let's say only the users that have pin bash. So only the ones that actually have a shell. And we find the user nobody. Maybe that's the user they're looking for. There we go. So there is a nobody user who also has a bash, but no, or has this non-existent home folder. So those were some of the persistence mechanisms. So we found the final persistence mechanism. Let's take a look at this folder. And we find a hidden file here, the you found me. Probably that's the one that they are going to ask about here. So what's the value after you go in all the way at the end? So let's say we output that file. And we find the final flag of this room. So let's copy it. And there we go. The room is completed.